Welcome to the Breakfast Show on Faith FM with Skafy and Narek. This is the best place to start your day with positive and uplifting thoughts.
You're listening all across Australia on 87.6, 87.8 or 88.0 depending on where you are, or you can listen to us on your Faith FM app anywhere you are in Australia.
That's right. And today, if you're listening live, is Thursday, the 26th of February 2026. Well, this is really a cool date, 26 to 26. That's a beautiful date today. And we will start with some gratitudes. Okay, I am grateful. I'll go first. I am grateful for golf courses in Australia.
Okay.
I never played golf in my life. Except for yesterday. Yesterday was the first time there was a golf course not far from where my children go to school, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to check this out today. Said, kids, we're going to play golf today after the school. I didn't realize how long a golf game would last. I think we got like a 9-hole sort of a package, and I think we couldn't get really past hole number 1 or 2. But we got to drive the buggy. We got to spend some time outdoors. We got to, be in that. They use this amazing, particularly on the greens around the place where there's the flag with the hole. Yeah. That grass, that it's so surreal. Yeah, it looks like artificial, but it's real. We saw ducks, and I probably isolated more than a few golf balls into the water course there. Wow. But all in all, it was such a good time. It was a blessing. I really loved it. I am looking forward to go again, even though I was aiming at a target. Yeah. And I managed to swing my club and get the ball flying 90 degrees from that target, like completely to the other side. All in all, it was great fun. So I'm very grateful for golf courses and playing golf. It was fun. It was a great way to spend time outdoors. What about you, Narek? What are you grateful for today?
Today I'm very grateful for the art of photography. It's something that I did when I was younger, in probably my high school years, but I never really tapped into. I do more film now, but there's something about taking still photos that really tell a story. So that's what I'm grateful for today, and having the ability to do that. Especially around Central Coast area, Newcastle. There's a lot of great places where you can take photos up in Newcastle, especially. Yeah, so that's what I've really enjoyed today. There's a good culture up there in Newcastle. So when I was walking around the streets, there's some interesting characters over there.
Oh, there's some interesting characters in Newcastle for sure.
Yeah, so that's what I'm grateful for today.
Yeah. And what about you, producer Shells?
Yeah, so I'm grateful for God's small mercies. Yesterday, after Charlotte, we went and got the paperwork and everything for getting her L's. It was her birthday yesterday. And we were crossing the crossing at Toronto. And it's funny how neither of us said a word, but we just stopped. And somehow I think we both just realized that the guy hadn't seen us and he was just going to keep going over the crossing.
Oh, wow.
And so we watched him go, both of us, without a word. He looked at us and, he definitely got the bigger fright than we did when he realized there was people there on the crossing. So,
he was probably thinking, man, where are these people coming from? Yeah. Coming out of nowhere.
So I'm grateful we saw him.
That was really good. I'm actually interesting that you said that, because I was having a conversation about motorcycles yesterday. And one of the things about motorcycling, if you're riding a motorbike in the street, is that you have to assume that you're not being seen. Okay. You have to assume that you're invisible. You have to act as if you're really on the show there, trying to make yourself as visible as possible. But you have to, because 90% of accidents happen because the drivers, they say, look, I haven't seen them.
Yeah. You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
We are so glad to spend the morning with you. And we're going to be starting with a quiz question from producer Shells. Please, producer Shells.
Alrighty. We're starting a question from Acts. While Paul was still known as Saul, he stayed at a house of Judas on which street? What was the name of the street in which Paul, who was still Saul, yes, Skafy's got it. Paul, who was still Saul at the time, stayed at the house of Judas on a street called, and you guys can text us in on 0491 064 669.
Yeah, I know this one because I've been there myself.
Have you
already.
been there?
I have. Like, of all
wow.
all the places that one
Yeah,
can go.
wow.
Yes.
And it's still called that?
yeah, it is.
wow.
And the reason why it's called that name,
Is
which I'm not going to
because
say,
it is
because
what it says.
It is what it says, yeah.
Wow.
And the house of Judas is still there. You can see where Paul was, healed from his blindness.
And it's for real. It's not one of those landmarks
no.
that they just make up.
No. This one is for real. It became a house church. So like this is like 1,000+ years old.
Where is it in? What?
It's in Damascus in
Damascus,
Syria. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So there you go. I went there when I was like 10 years old.
Oh, you
Oh,
were
wow.
young.
Yeah, I was very young. Yeah.
What an experience.
Yeah. it was
10 years
great.
old? Wow. Being
Yeah.
able to.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
All right. You having a go?
Yeah, I'm having a go. Don't look at mine, Skafy, because you might copy me.
Are you joking? Where am I looking?
Oh, the bottom one.
The big one? That's where we live.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
But that's good.
Okay.
You're being silly. That's what Lawson would write.
Yes, you're getting the spirit of Lawson here. Yeah. Okay, producer Shells. Thank you very much for that quiz question. The only thing that I would add is that there is this myth that while Paul was still called Saul, Paul was never, his name was never changed. He just had two names because he had his Hebrew name and then the Latin version of the same name. But it's not like, because I understand where the confusion comes from. Because in the Bible, we have a lot of people whom God gave them new names.
Yeah.
For example, Jacob and Israel.
Yeah.
So the man was named Jacob. God said, from now on, I'm going to call you Israel. And it is very interesting because the book of Revelation says that God is also going to give us a new name when we get to go to heaven. So he's going to give us a name based on our spiritual history on earth. The Apostle Paul, nobody ever changed his name. It was just like, how sometimes you have Chinese people and their name in China is one, and then their name in Australia is
different,
Peter or some like Western name. This is the same thing what happened to Paul. So Paul nobody changed his name. He just had a name that was Hebrew friendly and one name that was Latin friendly.
Okay,
that
I
was
see that.
all. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, and in today's show, we're going to be looking at a few things. We're going to be continuing the story of Joseph here today. We're going to continue seeing what the dialogue between Pharaoh and Jacob was. But then today we are going to also talk about Anthropic. Anthropic is one of the world's greatest AI companies, and they are going through a big decision that they have to make.
Yeah.
How much are their values worth? I mean, by values, I mean the things that they stand for.
Okay.
Because they are in a big clash against the United States government.
Right.
But I'm going to tell more about that story later.
Awesome.
It's a very interesting one.
Yeah.
What about you, Narek? What are you going to be talking about later in the show today at our 7 a.m. slot?
Today, I'm going to be talking about the Good News Street project. Obviously, we are sharing about good news that's happening around the world. And this particular project has been taking the actual social media world by storm.
Okay.
So it's a
Don't
project.
take too much. Let's leave it in the air. So our friends can come back at 7 o'clock to read for us. But that sounds an absolutely great story here. So let's move on into our Bible. Can you please open your Bible for us on Genesis chapter 47 and verse 4. So yesterday we were talking about, having little scripts.
Yeah.
And things that we learn from the Bible, from others as, hey, you know what, before we have an important conversation with someone, let's make sure that we know what we're going to say. And I think there's a lot of wisdom there.
Yeah.
Even in having like crucial conversations, difficult conversations with important people, maybe your boss at work, or maybe with an employee or a colleague, or even your wife. Like sometimes just going back, taking one step back and like writing down and really thinking through what you're going to say helps a lot, because sometimes just one word out of place can cause a big damage.
Yeah.
So let's read let's just recap what Jacob said to Pharaoh and see what Pharaoh responded.
Yeah. Let's read.
So verse 4.
We have come to live here in Egypt for a while, for there is no pasture for our flocks in Canaan. The famine is very severe there, so please, we request permission to live in the region of Goshen. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, now that your father and brothers have joined you here, choose any place in the entire land of Egypt for them to live. Give them the best land of Egypt. Let them live in the region of Goshen. And if any of them have any special skills, put them in charge of my livestock too.
Yeah, and which was something that we were talking
Yeah.
about. Remember, the Egyptians, by and large, they never ate meat
Yeah.
except for Pharaoh and like,
Yeah.
the higher class. So Pharaoh had some livestock himself, and he said, "Look, if any of your brothers is a particular good shepherd,
Yeah.
well, he can look after my flocks
Yeah.
as well." What do you think? What's the difference between a good shepherd and and a bad one? Like, because Pharaoh is saying here, hey, if any of your brothers actually have some
Special
special
skills,
skills,
yeah.
kind of like the special skills migration visas that we have here in Australia, So, what do you think would distinguish an average shepherd from a real good one?
I would say maybe being able to lead your flock well and look after, maintain like their flock. I've been on a few farms and just seeing how the main kind of I'm not too sure in this sense or in a farm how farmers look after their flock. And when I was going around, I'm from the city, so when I see them in the country, there's a specific kind of skill that they would use to direct their animals. So I think maybe that's what kind of would separate them is their leadership skills in doing in taking care of their flock. That's kind of my perspective. On that.
I
When
think
it
you're
comes to
right.
shepherds.
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of things here because the shepherd needed to be. I think it's being real an all-rounder person.
Yeah.
Because if you're in charge of Pharaoh's livestock, you also have to have like both sheep leadership and human leadership
Yeah.
skills. Because
Yeah.
you're probably going to be leading other shepherds.
Yeah.
You have to have those people skills.
Yeah.
But you also need to understand a little bit about you had to be a bit of a veterinarian, because look, what happens if one of your sheep
Yeah.
fell sick? You needed to know how to care
Look
for
after
them,
them,
and so
yeah.
on. You needed to be physically strong because there's sometimes you had to carry
Yeah,
those
that's true.
heavy sheep on your back for different reasons. You had to be brave and courageous and protect them from wild animals.
Yeah.
And you had to be able to. One of the things that I find fascinating about these Middle Eastern shepherds is that they actually have voice commands for the sheep.
Right.
So they train them kind of like a dog.
Yeah.
And they come upon request. They call them. They flock together in one flock to protect from outside wild animals' aggressions.
Yeah.
He can make them lie down.
Wow.
So that he can count them and
Yeah.
see, if there's no one missing. So these sheep are actually trained,
Okay.
kind of like we do with dogs today.
Yeah.
They're training some tricks, but these tricks, like they have these voice commands, and then the sheep would do certain things.
Wow, they'll be able to listen
Or they
and
will
respond.
come.
Wow.
Yes, they will come. They will come when the shepherd is calling. So I think that these all go into that package
Yeah.
of skills. All right, so let's move on to verse 7.
Then Joseph brought in his father Jacob and presented him to Pharaoh. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh. How old are you? Pharaoh asked him. Jacob replied, I have traveled this earth for 130 hard years, but my life has been short compared to the lives of my ancestors. Then Jacob blessed Pharaoh again before leaving his court.
Yeah, let's just pause here. I think that this is a very interesting passage here. First of all, the way that people, like Pharaoh asked Jacob, how old are you?
Yeah.
In my translation it says, how many years have you lived?
Yeah.
I actually kind of like that. Actually, in Hebrew here, the literally is like, what are the days of the years of your life?
Right.
What are the days of the years of your life? So kind of like, hey, how many days have you, does your life have?
Yeah.
Which I think it's really interesting because in English, when we wanting to know someone's age, we
yeah.
ask, how old are you?
Yeah.
I met this guy once, and he was an older fella, and he was a very interesting character. And he would refuse to ask anyone, or even to be asked, how old are you? He says, how young are you?
Yeah, yeah.
Because old can take this negative
Yeah, of course.
connotation to
Yeah.
it. Like, oh, how old are you? What do you mean how old I am? I'm not old.
Yeah.
So, but asking instead, how many years do you have
Yeah.
in your life? It's a nice way to ask people
it's a better
things.
approach. I know that in my culture, it's a bit rude to ask someone, hey, how old are you? But I'm going to do that. I'm going to use that one now. how many days have you lived? I think that's a more better approach, would you say, to...
Look, I do not know how many days. I'll have to calculate, but it will be about 36, 37, because, 37 times 365,
Yeah.
whatever that is. Yeah. About that.
Wow.
So I'm approaching my 40s.
Man, you're still looking very good and sharp and fit, so...
Thank you very much, Narek. I think you deserve a raise after that one. So Producer Shells will process the payment for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And in other languages, you say, in Portuguese, you ask people, how many years do you have?
Okay.
It's a bit more of a neutral one.
Wow.
All right, so verse 9, then his answer was so interesting because, again, I think it is a bit of a depressing answer.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
But I think there's some interesting things here. He says, what did he say? Read it again from verse 9.
Jacob replied, I have traveled this earth for 130 hard years, but my life has been short compared to the lives of my ancestors.
Okay, well, I'll read from my translation here because I think there's more detail here.
Yeah.
You're probably using a more modern translation and they're kind of cutting out some of the details, but this is what it says here on mine. I'm reading from the New American Standard Bible, which is a very literal translation.
Yeah.
So Jacob said to Pharaoh, the years of my sojourning are 130. Few and unpleasant have been the years of my life, nor have they attained the years that my fathers lived. So he's saying here, there's a few things here. Number one, Jacob is talking about his sojourning on earth. And I think this is just a very interesting concept here. What sort of picture do you get with that idea of my sojourning here on earth?
Sojourning. Well, in my translation, it said hard years. So is it something around that? Just probably on the lines of maybe hardship on the earth? Is that?
No, so sojourning is like your temporary abode. Like, sojourning is when it's like a pilgrimation, so to speak.
So on a journey.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow. Pilgrims.
Yeah. What I like about that one is that it is implying here that this earth was just his temporary home.
Yeah.
And I think this is very aligned with the Bible teaching that we were actually we were created for a different home.
Yeah.
Which we were created to live eternally. And the Bible says that we're going to spend 1,000 years in heaven with Jesus, and then he's going to rebuild this earth into something completely new, and that's where it's going to be our permanent address, permanent residency. Why I think it's important, because when we kind of see this life as all that there is, it changes how the decisions that we make.
Right.
For example, if I believe that this earth, this planet is all that I have, well, how do I maximize my life here then?
Yeah.
Am I just going to try to accumulate as much pleasure that I can?
Yeah.
But if I am putting pleasure first above everything else, what am I sacrificing in the process? What is the cost for that?
Yeah.
Maybe you can think about health. Maybe you can think about relationships. Maybe you can think about a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
Or, for example, if succeeding in this life is all that I have, well, what are some of the definitions of success that this world has to offer? A lot of money, a lot of, maybe sexual partners for some people, or power, all these kind of things. But when we realize, hey, this is actually just a temporary thing, very, very temporary, compared to the great scheme of things, this is not like, not even scratching the surface of what life is actually to be. So if I'm having eternity in sight, then I'm going to say, hey, no, actually, my character comes first. And serving God comes first. Or if I'm going through hardship, I'm not going to go into desperation, because whatever is the hardship that we're going, we know that they are always going to be temporary. There is not one bad thing, one hardship, one injustice ever perpetrated in the history of the world that is going to be eternal. Because God says that he's going to make up for all these things, even death. He's going to revert death, which is perhaps one of the greatest, if not the greatest tragedy that we can experience in our life. So whatever is the trauma, whatever is the tragedy, God says, look, this is temporary. I'm going to heal you while you're here to a great degree. But ultimately, I'm going to operate a perfect and complete healing, perfect and complete restoration. And unless we have that idea that we are sojourners we tend to be way too attached to the
Yeah.
things of this world, and by being too attached to these things of this world, we suffer a lot of fluctuation, suffer a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah, of course.
You know, we don't have such that stability
Yeah.
of purpose, that stability of faith that comes with seeing things from a much wider time span perspective.
Yeah. Well, that's an awesome word to share.
Yeah.
I think that encourages myself and also to listeners as well.
So we're sojourners. We're just
Yeah.
temporary. You know, this is
We're
not
just
our
passing through.
This is not our final home or
Wow,
no.
that's-
It's just
that's
a
powerful.
passing through. This is like a connection.
Yeah.
We are now going to be listening to Anders Svensson, Gone Are the Days. And if you would like to receive a book from us, text us here, #beginnings, and we'll send you a book about the book of Genesis, all explained, so that you can grow, you can have an amazing time reading and absorbing the Word of God.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
And now it is the time for the answer to the quiz question.
So the quiz answer. Sorry, one sec. Had to clear my throat. Okay, so the quiz answer is straight. The street was called Straight. And I
Wow.
take it it's very straight
Yeah,
street.
it's a very straight street.
Okay, so when you were there, when you were 10, did you notice that it was a very straight street?
Yeah,
when you were there?
yeah. You can Google it. You can Google
Yeah?
How
straight
long
street
is it?
in Damascus. Look, it's not particularly long. It's not
Right.
super long. I would say 500 meters, less than
Wow.
a kilometer. Yeah, not very long. Damascus was a very interesting city. I had some relatives that lived there, an auntie and an uncle, and so we went to visit them. So yeah, it was a very interesting country, very different, very desertic. There's a lot of desert
Okay.
areas there, but it was an interesting childhood memory. That one.
That's awesome.
All right, next
Okay,
quiz.
next quiz question.
All right, this is a fill in the blank. And she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people, blank, blank, blank. Fill in the blank.
Okay, here you go.
Yes, correct. And she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people, blank, blank, blank. And you guys can tell us those three blanks on 0491 064 669. 0491 064 669. It's from Matthew 1:21. And she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people. I nearly said it. Blank, blank, blank. Yeah, basically. You're missing one of the words, but that's correct.
Okay, very, very good. Thank you very much, Producer Shell. So what is the answer to that one? Let us know here, 0491 and 064 669. Let's keep going with our Bible study here, Narek.
Yes.
So we are looking at the years of sojourning, and Jacob says here that his years were few and unpleasant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why you reckon he said that?
I think that he, obviously when he mentioned that sojourning, so obviously the life that he's kind of lived, especially with the stuff that's happened, with the story of Joseph and him being involved in that, I think maybe there could have been guilt carried with him during that time that he lived on this earth. So yeah, that's kind of my perspective on this. And when he's saying that, he's lived that unpleasant, and these years have been unpleasant, and they have
And doesn't that sound like a bit ungrateful?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just like, wow, because being able to say that he's lived 130 years, which is unpleasant, and that's a big statement from Jacob.
Yes. Look, let me say, look, knowing a little bit of Middle Eastern culture, my
Yeah.
family comes from the Middle East, so my family is like Christian Lebanese kind of
wow.
background, and I met a lot of people,
Yeah.
from Middle East. I noticed that there's one thing when you are asking a Middle Eastern person that went through a big trauma
Yeah.
of some sort. For example, I remember meeting this guy and his family in a farmer's market
Yeah.
that they have here in Newcastle, and they had a little stall there. I think they were Syrians,
Okay.
refugees,
Yeah.
Syrian refugees, and his wife cooked like this amazing food. Amazing, it was the best stall ever. And I was just, talking to them and getting to know them. He used to be an engineer.
Wow.
Then he was working here in Australia. And then whenever I would ask him, hey, are you liking your life here in Australia?
Yeah.
He'll kind of look and he'll give like an answer just like Jacob. He would just
Wow.
look at me with like the saddest of faces and says, look, I like my home. I don't like the fact that I'm being a refugee.
Wow.
So when people went through certain traumas, they are really, there's a lot of that culture to say, look, no, my life has been actually very sad.
Yeah.
In Jacob's case, his life being very sad. Look, he lost his wife.
Yeah.
He lived a lot of these years, without without knowing if his favorite older son from his favorite wife was alive.
Yeah.
Which was in the case of Joseph. He spent a lot of he had a big conflict with his father-in-law.
Yeah.
So he definitely had some reasons. But in that culture, it's a little bit different from our culture, because in our culture, if even if you're sad and I ask, hey, Narek, how are you going? How are you going? You normally say, yeah, I'm well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll kind of pick it up from your tone of voice that you're not sounding like your natural normal self.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you say something like, yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah.
But you won't say, you know what? I mean, sometimes you do, but it's very rare that people would say, look, my years have been really bad.
Yeah.
My whole life has been just a life of, suffering and tragedy and so on. We often don't see that in our culture so much, which is different a little bit. Certainly for Jacob. Jacob was a bit of also, I think, above the curve in that he was quite a dramatic personality by himself. But there's one thing though that when I look at that report from Jacob,
Yes.
there's one thing that I notice. All of his personal family dramas, all of them, I would say all of them, came from that one really bad choice of trying to secure the birthright from his brother by deception.
Right.
If he didn't try to deceive
Yeah.
his brother Esau, he would still get like a pretty good blessing from his father Isaac.
Yeah.
He would not need to be a slave to work as a slave to his uncle Laban. He would not have been deceived into receiving the wrong girl to marry, the one that he didn't love.
Yeah.
Both of his wives, they would never fight with each other because they would not. Their fight was because of attention from the husband. That was the thing. So they would still be in a great relationship. He wouldn't have had all of these 12 sons from 4 different women that were fighting against each other. He wouldn't have the issue of some sons feeling their entire lives that they have been rejected by the father and then hating the actual son that the father loved and liked. So Joseph would never have been thrown into the pit by his brothers and then sold, and he would never have to live with that idea, that his son was gone.
Yeah.
All of these things stemmed from one decision. Isn't that crazy to think about it?
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't look. I mean, we as humans, talking about people in general, we don't see far enough. Sometimes not trusting in God in one specific matter and wanting to take it by our own hands. We have no idea sometimes how far-reaching the consequences of that can be.
Yeah, and it's kind of like that domino effect that people would say that one kind of decision would affect kind of like where you would go in that sense of future. So just seeing the situation that Jacob is in, it just makes you reflect on your own life and decisions that I've kind of made. And hearing that he's saying that he spent 130 years that have been unpleasant, knowing that that's kind of stemmed from decisions that he's made in his life. So, as we were saying, that domino effect of just making that one decision leading to kind of all these different paths, I guess, and outcomes to his life.
And the opposite is also true. Sometimes one good decision of faith in God will lead to a whole cascade of blessings. Yes, I can definitely relate to both of that. I can even share some of these decisions that I made in my life, so maybe good and so maybe not so good. But one of the things, though, the good news in that story like from God's perspective, that God is actually able to work through the messiness
Yeah.
of our decisions and
Yeah.
metaphysical decisions, and ultimately his ultimate plan is being fulfilled,
Yeah.
irrespective of that.
Yeah.
And this is definitely something to celebrate here. So God used all of that to still save the family of Abraham, to still be able to get people there so that they could eventually give birth to the lineage of the
Yeah.
Messiah. So God is able to work through all of that. Not trusting in God versus trusting in God would determine how much suffering
Yeah.
we will end up having or
Yeah,
not
yeah, of
in our
course.
life. It also determines like what's the difference that we're gonna make in other people's lives.
Yeah.
I'll give one example here. Why I've made this decision in my life back in the days to give my life to Jesus.
Yeah.
When I was about in my early 20s,
Yeah.
I got to know about the Lord, and I said, look, you know what? The Bible is real. God is real. God loves me. This is an incredible God that's ruling the universe. He knows me, and I want to serve Him because look what He gave me everything that I have, and everything that He will give to me, like eternal life and everything. So look, I'm going to serve this God. This is the best thing, the best cause, the best person I can serve in my entire life.
Yeah.
As a result of that, I learned that when I was looking for a partner,
Yeah.
I should look for a partner with certain characteristics. One of them being that they would also be lovers of Jesus
Yeah.
and followers of Jesus.
Yeah.
And that led me to ended up ultimately rejecting a number of other ladies that came
Wow.
to my life that were not, that, they had a lot going on for them, but they did not have faith going on for
Yeah.
them. But by me saying no to these particular relationships, and
Yeah.
in some cases, like God helping me to depart from these
Yeah.
relationships, because perhaps I wouldn't have the strength or the
Yeah.
courage or the wisdom to do that myself.
Yeah.
But that ended up leading me to meet my wife,
Wow.
which is the love of my life, which is I'm so happy with, which is I'm building a family with,
That's
which
awesome.
of all the ladies I can think in the entire human race,
Yeah.
she's the absolute, the very best choice for me.
That's amazing.
But that would not, so the very best match, the person that I love the most, the person that I want to spend my eternity with, that would not have happened if I haven't made certain decisions back in the day.
Yeah.
So one decision was leading to another, to another, to another,
Yeah.
until we got this point.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And just hearing your story, I think I also recall at times in my life when I am doing life with God and I'm walking alongside Him and I'm in His Word daily. My decisions are shaped a lot more. What's the word? I'm having a much more level head when I'm going into decisions and making decisions versus when I was a bit younger, a bit more reckless. When I've come to making decisions, I didn't have that moral compass that the Bible gives and that Jesus gives me. So when it came to making decisions when I was a bit younger, I didn't really take into account consequences. But then when I start to read the Bible and through the Proverbs and through the Psalms and also through Ecclesiastes, for instance, where everything serves a time. And those decisions that I've made were pivotal in my life. And I'm glad that, there's decisions that I made when I was walking alongside God. And it's led me to, be here on radio with yourself, talking to amazing people that we have listening to us every morning. So, yeah, it's a beautiful kind of thing when you trust God with your decisions. And it's crazy where He can lead you because sometimes I'm thinking
He leads. This is the power. This is really one of the amazing things about the power of God. Like by making some really small, tiny decisions of faith, of trusting in God, that ends up steering our lives to places that we can't even imagine.
Of course.
But the good news as well is, maybe you can be looking at that and saying, oh, you know what, but look where I've been in my life. The good thing about it is that, number one, God can redeem our bad choices.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of bad choices in my life, and I felt that God really saved me from what could have been really worst case scenarios.
Yeah, wow.
So that's definitely one thing. So God does have our back when we ignorantly make mistakes.
Yeah.
But also, there is this thing that every day, God gives us fresh opportunities to make different and better choices. Actually, intelligence in the Bible, when you look at the book of Proverbs, is not like how much you know, how good you are with mathematics or logic, how good you are with communication and language. All these things, they have a place. All these things are kind of intelligence. But the number one kind of intelligence in the Bible is the intelligence of being able just to make good choices, what the Bible would call to choose righteousness, to choose what's to choose to have faith in God,
Yeah.
to look at each circumstance and say, okay, what does faith in God look like in this
Yeah.
case? It actually helps to break down. And then the consequences, you leave it to God. Even, quote unquote, sometimes bad consequences that
Yeah.
could come, God overturns, if you are being righteous,
Yeah.
God overturns them
Yeah.
to a greater good.
Yeah.
Example of that in the story of Joseph is that, for example, Joseph chose not to give in to the sexual assaults of Potiphar's wife.
Yeah.
And what happens as a result? Oh, he ended up going to jail. And people,
Yeah.
if you only read that story to that point, say like maybe it didn't really
Yeah.
work out for him. But because he went up to jail, he ended up being connected
Yeah.
with Pharaoh's cupbearer, who eventually was the ticket out of Joseph, not only out of jail, but into being the second in charge of the whole Egypt. So sometimes when we are being faithful to God, what happens is that Satan wants to see if he can discourage
Yeah.
us, and he's going to use that as an occasion for persecution.
Yeah.
But then if we persevere in God, say, look, what I've done was the right thing. What happens that God is able to then turn the tables around,
Yeah.
and that which Satan intended for evil, actually God overturns and causes for good. And my life is filled with these kinds of stories
Wow.
of, for example, people that I blessed or invested in, if they have responded that love with hatred,
Yeah.
or for absolutely no reason, or for selfish reasons and so on, trying to cause damage. And then as a result of that damage, just trusting in God, and through that whole roller coaster, we reach like a bit of a rock bottom curve. And then before I know, because of that, I look at these experiences in my life and say, like, wow, these actually have caused me to receive some of the greatest blessings that I
Yeah.
have today.
That's powerful.
This is God's doing for everyone.
Yeah. Of course.
So isn't that an amazing thing? So, so Jacob is there. But look, you know what? He's being a little bit dramatic for
Yeah.
sure. Look, he's living in the best land of Egypt now.
Yeah.
He has all of his sons,
yeah.
next to him. All of his sons are now in harmony with each other.
Yeah.
It took a while to be there.
Yeah.
But the place where Jacob is living at the moment, I can say, look, I think he's very blessed.
Yeah.
He's very blessed right now. We're now going to be listening to another song. This is by Jason Horde. This one is called Evidence. And if you like to text us here for any reason, questions and sharing insights with us, well, our text line is the same, 0491 064 669.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
We've been talking about Jacob's sojourning and how he had a bit of a bitter life, even though God now was really blessing him. But Narek, a lot of times we can be in a place today that we're finding it hard to see life through the cup half full side of things.
Yeah.
And if this is you, radio friend, if you've been going through a season where you're kind of asking, like, what's the purpose of all things? Like, it's hard. It's even hard to keep going. I can't really see how life can be any good. We actually have a resource that I believe might help you. It's a book called Life is Good and the Best is Yet to Come by William Johnson. And it's a book to help us to really have a different perspective on our own life, on the things that we're going today, so that we can train our brains to really look at, however desperate and terrible and difficult the situation is, being able to see the silver lining, being able to be at peace
Yep.
during those storms. I think that's the real gift that God wants to give us. Is sometimes the life circumstances won't necessarily change, or they will change, but going through that change with peace in your heart, I think this is a very priceless gift. That gift of serenity. And if you think that you could have a little bit more of that serenity in your life right now, you can text me here with hashtag Life is Good to 0491 064 669. Again, hashtag Life is Good to 0491 064 669, and we'll send you that book for absolutely free. So text us now. Don't wait any longer. If this is you, look, what are you waiting until you can experience peace and serenity and calm and contentment? Why dealing and living with stress and fear and anxiety for way longer than you should? Text us here and we'll send you that gift free of charge. No commitments, no strings attached or anything. We just want to bless your life. Producer Shells, what is the answer to the quiz question?
So our 3 blanks were from their sins. And she shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people from their sins.
Yeah. He shall save his people from their sins. Not in their sins, but from their sins. And this is it for our Bible study today. Tomorrow we will continue our journey through the story of Joseph. So we are going to listen to another song now by Rob and Mark, Here Is Love. We're going to, after that, have the news. And after the news, we are going to have our second part of our show, where I'm going to be talking about the very interesting case being faced by one of the world's, well, they actually like to call themselves the good guys of artificial intelligence. Contrasting to OpenAI and Sam Altman, they think that these are the bad guys, but we are the good guys. But they are now in a crossroads.
Wow.
Because if they stand firm for what they believe is actually good use of AI, they're going to go bankrupt.
Wow.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Versus if they just surrender, if they just relax their principles just a little tiny bit, they're going to become one of the world's largest and most successful companies in history. This is actually happening right now. This is a decision that's going to be made by agents, by people within the next few days.
Wow,
I'm going to tell you all the story behind Anthropic's clash with the Department of Defense of the United States of America.
Yeah.
But after our news segment.
Thanks for being a part of the Faith FM family. Join our community on Facebook or get in touch at 1-800-FAITH-FM.